The Phantom Troupe is about to get a new member. One that's just like Chrollo and will fulfill Uvo's dream of becoming the world's greatest villain. After the death of Isaac Netero, we were given a democratic battle of wits within the Hunter Association to decide who the next chairman would be. And now we have an expedition to the Dark Continent that features a royal succession contest to decide the new king of the Kakin Empire. This is a very complicated conflict that involves several parties and factions with the potential to change the world forever. We have King Nasubi, 14 princes, 8 queens, 12 zodiacs, various hunters, 3 crime families, the Supreme Court, Beyond Netero, Beyond Netero's group, Beyond Netero's kids, the Afterlife Companions, Tesserenik's friends, the Phantom Troupe, and Hisoka, all vying for dominance on one ship. But one group in particular is especially dangerous, and that's because they don't care about anything besides total anarchy and the end of the world. Haili is one of the Kakin Empire's 3 crime families. They make most of their money by serving as intermediaries between the very wealthy and the black market. But at some point, the organization was overthrown by one of its junior members, Morena Prudo. She became their new boss and commanded her followers to kill each other until only 22 of them were left. Since then, they have indiscriminately killed hundreds of civilians. Based on the facial scars she shares with the leaders of the other crime families, Morena Prudo may appear to be a second-track faker, an illegitimate child of Kakin royal blood that possesses no claim to the throne. But while she has the scars and a similar genetic situation, this person was never considered as such. In reality, the real Morena Prudo was a second-track faker, but she is now dead and in this woman's grave. She stole her identity. This false Morena that we know was designated as meat to be used by human traffickers, more specifically, Haili's traffickers. Bracco Lee is the boss of Cha'ar and King Nasubi's illegitimate half-brother. Onior Langbao is the boss of Shiyu and another one of King Nasubi's illegitimate half-brothers. Both of these guys live lavish lifestyles and have no problem contacting each other. Maintaining balance is of the utmost importance to them and the underworld in general. Morena is the polar opposite. She has been taking active steps to utterly destroy the balance. She doesn't care about wealth, extravagance, the world, or even her own life. The residential areas provided to each of the underworld bosses are all just as opulent as the ones used by the upper-ranked queens. Their luggage capacity is also the biggest besides the king's. Yet Morena hasn't so much as touched her living quarters. All 3 crime families are connected to a royal prince benefactor. Shiyu has the 3rd prince, Cha'ar has the 7th prince, and Haili has the 4th prince. What's interesting is that in most monarchies, none of these benefactors would have any claim to the throne because King Nasubi is not their father. But as it turns out, legitimacy in the Kakin Empire requires you to be the child of one of the king's wives. But it does not stipulate that you must be the child of the king himself. 3rd Prince Zhang confirmed to us that Onior is his father. And it's not hard to tell that Bracco Lee is the father of 7th Prince Lazarus. And presumably, 4th Prince Tesserenik is actually the son of Beyond Netero. The 4th Prince in particular is easily the most insidious candidate for the throne. He is an indulgent serial killer that delights in the mutilation and collection of corpses. But he has not sanctioned Haili's recent conduct. Even the mafia families are beholden to certain rules. Violence between families is to be verbally acknowledged by a boss within a 24-hour window and compensated in some fashion. And obedience towards royal authority is absolutely mandatory. All of these rules and more have been disregarded by Morena and Haili. This is an extreme act of rebellion against their benefactor and warrants total annihilation. But Tesserenik has been too busy learning Nen to take action against them. Although he's been learning it at a rate that puts even Gon and Killua to shame, it'll still take some time for him to get to the level that he desires. Only 2 of the 14 princes were aware and capable of using Nen prior to boarding the Black Whale. The 1st Prince Benjamin and the 2nd Prince Camilla. Even the crime bosses have only just learned about it recently, despite Shiyu having a few under its belt. But Morena knew about Nen beforehand and seems to be very capable. Her Nen ability is called Contagion. As its member 0, Morena can pass on a budding version of her ability to 22 other people by way of saliva. Each recipient then gains the ability to level. Levels are dependent on kills. Killing a civilian is worth 1 level. Killing someone with Nen abilities is worth 10 levels. And killing a prince is worth 50 levels. Each level increases a person's total aura and power. At level 20, a carrier gains their own Nen ability. At level 100, a carrier becomes a new member 0 and can create their own community of 23 infected, including themselves. If killing a Nen user or prince is a collaborative effort among those with levels, the distribution of levels gained is decided by Morena as the one who created the ability. To recruit new members, Morena invites them to play a high-stakes card game. The prospect faces the possibility of death by playing, while Morena's group faces the prospect of exposure. This acts as a limitation and condition that empowers the bond created by Contagion. And this ability certainly has the potential to destroy the world. In this series, civilians are often killed in droves. And due to the specification of civilians, killing a guard or official that doesn't have a Nen ability provides no benefits. Therefore, it heinously incentivizes the slaughter of the weak masses. The same people who would be most susceptible to desiring Contagion's benefits. In only a matter of days, most of Hai Li's members have managed to hit level 20 and manifest their own abilities. Only 4 of the remaining 21 members still lack their own. And although they can't decide their Nen type, a recipient can influence what their ability will be by wishing hard enough. Thanks to this, the collaboration of a sect has the potential to far exceed that of most Nen user groups. Members can intentionally fulfill some sort of integral function. Vocante is an emitter that manifested the ability Door. This teleportation ability acts as a trap that sends people directly to their hideout. There, Hai Li's members can rack up levels in private. It's a multiple-use landmine type, meaning its trigger is made by directly applying Nen to a specific place. It has a strong compelling force, causing it to be limited to about 2 or 3 spots. The stronger the compelling force, the closer the user needs to be to the entry or exit. Thus far, Door has been instrumental to their operations and easy leveling. If someone enters their hideout that they don't want to deal with, they can depend on Yokotani's ability, a Battle of Wits. This conjuration ability is purely defensive, and only usable in Hai Li's hideout when Morena is present. It activates when Yokotani tells any invaders his name and creates a defense force. These defenders are immune to damage and can't deal damage. Their aura increases in proportion to the crimes invaders are charged with post-entry. At the very least, they'll almost always be empowered by the charge of breaking and entering against invaders. But they would be inert against someone with legal access, such as a prince or the Supreme Court. They confiscate weapons and evict trespassers. With so many stipulations and restrictions, they're strong enough to restrain someone like Nobunaga at caution level 5. Level 5 is said to be their maximum. In terms of physical strength, Nobunaga is the weakest of the current fighters aside from Shizuku. So maybe the defenders would have more trouble with someone like Finks. But then again, Yokotani was only at level 27. So by increasing his level, his guards may become several times stronger. The incentive towards collaborative abilities has also resulted in Dogman, Hai Li's highest level member, becoming the rare case of a male enhancer with a supportive ability. With Supernatural Smell, he can discern a person's Nen type from a distance of 5 meters or roughly 16 feet away. And he can tell if a person has learned Nen from a distance of 2 meters or roughly 5 feet away. If he's up close, he can identify a person with certainty. This is very helpful when it comes to selecting targets. And figuring out a person's Nen type is invaluable when it comes to devising countermeasures. Another scary thing about the way these levelers manifest their abilities is the fact that they can recreate another person's Nen ability if they have the same affinity. Individuality plays a huge role when it comes to Nen abilities. Imitation can get in the way of a person's true potential. It can take far longer for someone to replicate another person's technique. And even then, there's no guarantee that they'll ever gain the ability at all. But with Contagion levels, there is a guarantee. Because of these aspects, having a few members below level 20 in reserve is probably ideal. That way, they can fulfill whatever role the sect requires as the need arises. Gelato is right on the cusp of an ability since she's at level 19. She's a pro gamer and has one of the more striking appearances among her group, so we can probably expect something interesting. Currently, only 5 out of 21 abilities are known to us, and in terms of Nen affinities, there are 6 Conjurers, 3 Enhancers, 4 Emitters, 2 Transmuters, and 1 Manipulator. Another dangerous thing about Contagion is the fact that once a sect member has died, their spot can be given to someone else. So member 0 can always replenish their forces. And killing someone with an ability grants 10 levels. So in theory, they could cannibalize themselves by killing fellow sect members for the sake of gaining and consolidating power. And as far as we know, there is nothing that restricts a person with a prior ability from being able to gain levels. In fact, with Morena in mind, it's most likely that they can. For an experienced Nen user, killing others with an ability is pretty much par for the course. With only 2 such kills, they would have another ability of their choosing, along with even more energy and power to call upon. Morena herself was at level 45 when she spread Contagion to her sect. Ergo, she also has an additional ability. It's unclear if reaching level 100 would benefit her in any way beyond increasing her aura and power. Another question is whether or not level 100 is the limit. By conventional game standards, it might just be. But then again, things like rollover, prestige levels, and New Game Plus are all concepts that could warrant some sort of empowered level repetition. If that's the case, a person could gain new abilities and increase their aura and power indefinitely. And even if new abilities aren't possible, if leveling is infinite, the potential aura gains are still astronomical. When it comes to increasing one's aura, daily practice of Ren and Ten may yield results over the course of months. But when it comes to training, across disciplines, there tends to be a sort of plateau or point in which the gains become far less noticeable. Contagion, meanwhile, offers considerable gains at whatever pace a carrier desires. And because they become stronger with each step, contrary to most leveling systems, the task of gaining levels keeps getting easier. Contagion is a threat to the entire world because of how quickly it can spread and how dependent it is on anarchy. Spreading Nen, or even just the knowledge of its existence to the masses, is a restricted taboo for a reason. A person with Nen abilities is far more dangerous than a person with a gun. No matter how strong someone may be, in most cases, it's best to be cautious against unknown Nen abilities. Power is corrupting, and that is precisely what Contagion spreads. The Nen beast of 3rd Prince Zhang seems to be capable of a similar function, the distribution of accumulating power. But it also takes quite a bit of time to reach a notable stage and is dependent on an item. Presumably, Contagion's effects can only be removed by way of Nen exorcism. Such exorcists are exceedingly rare. Even the Hunter Association only has one amongst their ranks. The Black Whale can hold 200,000 passengers, most of whom are civilians caught in the midst of Nen battles coming from all directions. Left unchecked, Contagion could produce more Nen users than the Hunter Association has members, which is only a bit over 600. And as Mizaistom the Ox deduced, such an issue could easily result in the Black Whale's destruction. But for as much power as Contagion can provide, its biggest caveat is that it circumvents far too many aspects of true Nen mastery. The 4 major principles of Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and Hatsu remain unlearned, let alone the advanced techniques of Gyo, In, En, Shu, Ko, Ken, and Lu. This is perhaps their most exploitable weakness. But with Tesserenik's current preoccupancy, the other Mafia families are struggling to maintain balance. As such, they turn to the Phantom Troupe for assistance. Seeing as the Mafia is currently assisting them, an all-out war would be unfavorable for them too. The Spiders boarded the Black Whale with the foremost objective of finding and killing Hisoka. Because he killed Shalnark and Kortopi, several members want Hisoka's head for themselves. To that end, they've separated into different groups. We've most predominantly seen Nobunaga, Phaeton, and Finks working together. along with Chrollo, Shizuku, and Benolanov doing the same, with the latter deciding that Chrollo will be the one to put him down. Thus far, Nobunaga's group has been the one most involved with the mafia and the hunt for Morena in particular. Two of the crime families have also joined the hunt for Hisoka, but this is really for the sake of controlling the spiders. Thanks to Benolanov's ability Metamorphose, he can change his appearance into someone he's spoken to, and maintain it for as long as he's been face to face with them. It has no size limit, but the shorter the person is compared to himself, the less time he has to maintain it. Back when Hisoka was with the spiders, they spent quite some time in each other's presence. Chrollo had Benolanov impersonate Hisoka, knowing that the mafia would intentionally distance him from the spiders by sending him to one of the higher tier floors of the Black Whale. And that is precisely what they did. And as expected, the real Hisoka is in fact on one of the higher floors, likely thanks to one of the princes. But despite having deduced as much in advance, Chrollo did not mention it at the Phantom Troupe's meeting since he wants to handle Hisoka himself. In the meanwhile, the more Nobunaga learns about Haile's operations, the more he's reminded of how the spiders do things. Their command structure is pretty much identical. The leader gives orders to the rest, and it's up to them to handle it however they want, so long as it gets the job done. Even their desire for global destruction is something that the spiders possessed early on. Nobunaga is a pretty sentimental guy. After Uvojin died, Nobunaga nominated Gon and Killua to be new members because Gon's stupid enhancer ways reminded him of his friend. And after seeing how Haile handles things, Nobunaga isn't in as much of a rush to crush them. He's begun putting a lot more thought into how they should deal with them and has a hunch that they should not be underestimated. Morena seems to be quite similar to Chrollo. Despite being the leaders of their respective groups, both characters are unperturbed by the eventuality of their deaths and have built their ideals to live beyond them. Several aspects of Chrollo may also be likened to a dark take on Jesus Christ. The same may be said of Morena due to the crown of thorns she wears. Morena is a specialist type Nen user like Chrollo. One of the typical quirks of a specialist type is that they are always surrounded by many people. We know that additional abilities provided by contagion stay true to the user's natural affinity, and Morena's extra ability seems to have something to do with Haile's hideout. Not even Nobunaga's katana could so much as scratch one of its walls. The location is presumably empowered by her proximity. Nobunaga had a hard time figuring out what sort of ability it might be, and admitted that it may be that of a specialist. Frankly, the spiders don't have the best track record when it comes to obeying or even working with the mafia. Two such groups are now urging them to crush Haile, a group that is very much similar to their own, and have proven themselves to be running contrary to their goals for the sake of maintaining balance. Haile, on the other hand, hasn't made a single antagonistic move against the spiders. Even after Nobunaga killed Luini, who had a useful teleportation ability and was friendly towards them, they did not retaliate in the slightest. And in self-defense, once their hideout was invaded, they made no attempts to actually harm Nobunaga and simply took his sword and evicted him. Three of their members, Quarrel, Tevelaers, and Daemon, all granted past level 50 for the sake of getting revenge against Hinrai of Shiyu for killing Padai. Nobunaga ended up making a shabby replacement for his confiscated weapon, but he'll no doubt want the real thing back. Dogman noticed Chrollo during the Ninth Prince funeral procession. Seeing as his ability improves as his level increases, his detection range may increase as well. This could make locating and identifying Hisoka for the spiders a far easier task. And although the spiders have a bad track record with the mafia, the current Haile can hardly be considered that. Some sort of proper meeting is in order. Everything points towards some sort of amiability or collaboration between Haile and the spiders. The Phantom Troupe even has 3 vacant positions: 6, 9, and 12. Besides hunting Hisoka, Chrollo seeks the Kaken Empire's sacred treasures: the Seed Urn, which is used by the participants of the Succession War to create their Nen beasts, the Zen Buddha that oversees the Succession War, and the Blade of Divine Guidance, which is passed down to the new king. Due to them being the very foundation of the Empire's prosperity and survival, these treasures are more fiercely protected than even the king himself. As the ultimate prize for a thief, stealing them would fulfill the conditions Chrollo needs to evolve his skill hunter ability. Chrollo likes to be very prepared. It's why he avoided fighting Hisoka for as long as he could before he was ready. And even then, despite killing the clown in Heaven's Arena, he failed to anticipate Hisoka's post-death contingency, a failure that cost the lives of 2 friends. Shalnark and Kortopi were no doubt the easiest targets for Hisoka among the spiders, but it's worth noting that both Manolanov and Shizuku opted to team up with Chrollo because they're both terrible matchups for Hisoka. And I get the feeling that the same may be said for most of them. Franklin fires projectiles, and Bungee Gum has a history of easily countering that sort of thing. Finks empowers his fists by winding up his arms, but Bungee Gum is an adhesive that could restrict him from doing so. Nobunaga is at his best with a sword, and Bungee Gum could serve to disarm him. Kaluto is a little too green to handle a veteran like Hisoka, and Hisoka has embarrassed Machi with ease. Aside from Chrollo, Phaeton and Illumi are the most noteworthy threats against him, and I imagine Phaeton will need to show us another one of his transformations since Rising Sun would probably endanger the entire ship. Hisoka vowed to kill the spiders on sight. He is currently starving for a one-on-one fight, so we can expect him to isolate members if he can help it. To truly defeat Hisoka, besides gaining more rare and powerful Nen abilities, Chrollo's decided to steal a national treasure ahead of the usual activation conditions. Balancing these 2 goals only becomes harder as time goes on, but being too hasty may prove costly. Effectively, Chrollo is stretched thinly and could use a bit of assistance beyond those who also want to kill Hisoka. And this difficulty will only increase once Kurapika becomes aware of their presence. His Nen ability was designed to exterminate them, and he's only gotten stronger since their last encounter. Of the 3 divine treasures, the Seed Urn is the one we are most familiar with. The first Kakin king conjured it for the sake of empowering his successors and ensuring the worth of Kakin's future kings. Therefore, besides fulfilling Chrollo's evolution condition, it may not actually do much else in his hands. Since several princes have gained spirit beasts from it despite failing to be the king's biological children, royal blood of any sort may serve as an acceptable offering. The notion of second track fakers may not have even existed during the reign of Kakin's first king. The succession contest is presumed to be the historically correct use of the urn, but that does not mean that it is the only way for it to be used. If Hailey and the spiders join forces, Morena could potentially use the urn herself to gain a spirit beast of her own. The spirit beasts each take after their vessels and their Nen affinity, so the idea of a specialist Nen beast that craves nothing aside from destroying the entire world is a terrifying prospect. And due to the unwritten rules of story narrative, we have to see the evolution of Chrollo's ability, so he will more than likely procure at least one of these treasures. Having served its purpose prior to the ship's occupancy, the urn is likely to be the one with the least attention. As far as I'm concerned, the strongest contenders for Kakin's throne are 1st Prince Benjamin, 2nd Prince Camilla, 4th Prince Tesserenik, 9th Prince Halkenberg, and the obligatory 14th Prince Wobble, who is protected by plot armor. But Morena has certainly proven that tradition and rules will not deter or hold her back in the slightest. So with her in mind, a more realistic endgame list would consist of 4th Prince Tesserenik, 14th Prince Wobble, and Morena, the second track usurper. I know a bunch of you guys have been begging for Hunter x Hunter coverage on the channel. This is of course a very in-depth series, so I decided to reread the entire thing from the beginning. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and can look forward to more going forward. As always, I'm Sliceable Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.